how banks create deposits and reserves. In the banking system, loans create deposits. That's how you say it. Loans create deposits. What does that mean? It means if I go in to buy a house, you're just trying to sell your house for, we're in New York, right? Better raise the price. $2.5 million. I usually say $250,000. You go to sell your house for $2.5 million, and I want to borrow the money from a bank to buy it, so I'm going to borrow $2.5 million. My credit's pretty good. So what does the bank do? The bank grants me the loan. They approve the loan for $2.5 million, and they give, what they do is they put $2.5 million into my account, which immediately goes into your account. I don't get to do anything with it except buy your house. Okay, so the $2.5 million loan is an asset for the bank. An asset is something the bank has, something it owns. They make a loan, I sign, I promise to pay it back. They have my promise to pay money. That's worth something. That's an asset. Okay. And they put $2.5 million in an account, in a checking account. That's a liability, which means the bank promises to pay that money or to pay that money. Okay. Notice the loan created the deposit. They did not go to the Federal Reserve. They did not go anywhere. The Federal Reserve doesn't even know they did this. The $2.5 million, then you sold your house to me, goes into your account, and let's say we're all at the same bank. Okay. So now the bank has a loan from me. I owe the bank $2.5 million, and there's $2.5 million in your account. You just sold me your house. You've got the money, I've got the house, the bank has a mortgage. Nobody has gone anywhere near the Federal Reserve. The money was created, that deposit was created as a matter of accounting out of thin air. The system's in balance. You have $2.5 million in your savings. My savings is negative. I have a loan, I owe $2.5 million. Your savings went up, mine went down. The net is zero, that's how they say it. $2.5 million loan, $2.5 million deposit. Now notice the bank created the money, the deposit, but it's not the bank's deposit. It belongs to you. You sold the house. You get to spend it, not the bank. The bank doesn't just take this and go spend it or anything like that. Okay. And one more thing happens, which is important to understand the sequence. If the Federal Reserve requires the bank to hold reserves, and reserves are just checking accounts at the Fed. So if I can call reserves checking accounts at the Fed from now on for this discussion, is that okay? Okay. So if the Fed requires that you have a checking account at the Fed, your bank has a checking account for, and they use 10% because the math is easy. The real number is less than 1%. So we'll say 10%. And I'm supposed to have 200, there's a requirement that I take that $2.5 million, I keep $250,000 at the Fed. As soon as I give you that deposit, my Fed account is now short $250,000. I'm supposed to have it there, but I don't. Okay. What I have is an overdraft at the Fed. My account is lower than it's supposed to be. It's like if you have a minimum balance requirement at your bank and you don't have it, it's below your minimum. Okay. And so what that is and it's technically called an overdraft loan from the Fed. You don't have, the bank doesn't put that money up. That bank owes the Fed that money. It's an automatic overdraft loan. So what we have in banking, this is how it works, loans create deposits, and they also create any reserves that the Fed might require. In the first instance, they're simply an overdraft in your Fed account. You're short what you're supposed to have in your Fed account. Okay. Now, the traditional textbook says the Fed gives you money, you make loans, you decide, and it gives you this money multiplier. That is absolutely correct for what's called a fixed exchange rate system, which has been gone since 1934, so I'm not even going to talk about it. What we've had for our lifetimes is a system where the loans create the deposits and they create reserves. And the old fractional reserve banking is perfectly correct. It's just for a different system. They still have it in Hong Kong, they still have it in a couple of other places, but we don't have it here, and none of the other